2 days away. This is the This Week in Missouri Politics you've waited all cycle for. We want to jump right into the show. Russ Carnahan, Congressman Carnahan, the election is right on the doorstep now, 2 days away. You're running for lieutenant governor. How's the campaign going?
You know, it's been a thrill to do this year, to see so many people in wonderful places in our state. We've gotten an earful from folks around the state. You know, we had a series of rural and urban roundtables around the state, developed a 9-point plan around that. And, you know, people have said, you know, they want our political system to work. We need reform there. They want our economic system to work better for them. And they want people to be in office that are going to listen. We hear that everywhere we've gone, and we want to put that to work, and we've gotten great feedback.
Give me the top 2 issues that people bring to you on the campaign trail.
Political reform, our broken political system, unlimited campaign donations and lobbyist gifts. Fortunately, part of that's going to be on the ballot this year. So I think we can make some progress.
Pass, right? Is that what you're hearing?
I really do. I think it'll pass big. And I think, again, an economic system that works for everybody, not just those at the top, and making those key investments in our economy, you know, even in rural communities where they're particularly struggling, missing those Medicaid dollars from expansion. Talked to a lot of hospital leaders from Kennett to St. Louis to Springfield that see that as a big economic driver. It needs to be fixed and get beyond some of the political games that we've seen played with our health care.
So let's talk a little bit about one group that's supporting you in kind of a unique way. We saw this week mailers went out attacking Chris Koster and your opponent, Mike Parson, in sort of a bipartisan cross thing to help Eric Greitens and yourself. That's sort of a unique thing. I mean, I doubt you expected the lines to be drawn quite so cross bipartisanly when you started the campaign.
We've seen a lot of cross-pollination of politics this year, but on this particular issue, Senator Parsons has been on the forefront of expanding foreign ownership of Missouri farmland that has opened up the door for really unregulated factory farming in our state. And whether you're talking to folks in rural Missouri that are concerned about smell and runoff, or folks in the urban area concerned about where their food comes from, that's an issue that should be bipartisan. And I think there's common ground there to work with folks to get better things done there.
You mentioned something that I think is a unique part you bring to the Democratic ticket. You're from Missouri. You're Phelps County, and you've represented the United States Congress, Jeff County, and St. Louis. But you all have the rural roots. Have you been able to use that in the campaign?
Absolutely, and it's a way. I mean, I grew up working farm jobs to put myself through Mizzou. We still have our family farm, over 100 head of Black Angus beef cattle. We live in a great historic neighborhood in St. Louis. So just understanding those diverse parts of our state is really a neat thing. And as you said, I represented a district in the U.S. Congress that went from the urban core of St. Louis, part of suburban St. Louis, but all the way down to rural areas in Jefferson and St. Genevieve.
Let's talk about that diversity breaks the state up. It looks like Hillary Clinton, the top of your ticket's heading for a pretty disastrous performance in Missouri. Does that impact races down to your race?
Well, I think voters in Missouri are very particular, and they are going to really pick and choose who they think is best for our state. We've not seen a lot of coattails, frankly, from either candidate at the top, and people are looking at these individual races in terms of, you know, who's standing up for them. We've gotten great feedback about that, and also people are looking for folks that can work in a bipartisan way. They're tired of the political food fight that they've seen in Jefferson City and Washington. I've got a long record of working in Washington, you know, even under the Bush administration. My first bill I passed in Congress was a bill that was signed by President Bush that started the process to do historic sites down in St. Genevieve, and worked together in a bipartisan way to get road improvements down in Jefferson County. So that's been my approach, and I think that's an approach that too often we're missing in Jefferson City, and it's one of the things that I think I bring to the table.
One of the issues I've heard about, you've talked a lot about, is right to work. Do you believe, it looks like union members probably vote Trump in this state. After Trump, though, do you think that the unions have communicated to them that they feel like they need to vote Democrat after that?
I do. This is a key issue in our state. We've seen what's happened in states that have passed right to work. We have so many successful companies in our state, you know, from Boeing to Anheuser-Busch. You can go down the list of successful companies that are unionized, that are successful, They have good benefits and pay for their workers, and we don't need to undo that. Unfortunately, Senator Parson, just this past week said that he didn't think union workers were hardworking Missourians. It's a real divide in our race, and it's something I flatly disagree with him about. We have some great hardworking Missourians. Many are unionized, and they help not just folks that are in their union, but it helps with pay and benefits, setting the standard around our state.
Ms. Grant, thank you so much for joining us this week at Missouri Politics. Good luck in 2 days.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. David Stillman making another appearance. We'll leave you with this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
Okay, go.
It's time for early childhood education.
Adults, every child in Missouri deserves pre-K. Hey, wait for me.
Investing in our education will improve the economy.
Preparing kids like me for better jobs. Raising graduation rates.
Missouri has the lowest cigarette tax in the nation.
If you don't smoke, you don't pay. Politicians can't touch any of the money.
Not a dime.
Sorry, politicians, it's for our education.
Vote yes.
Your children deserve it.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
For years, Jason Kander's been trying to create a liberal majority.
They're going to call you pinkos, commies, lefties, activists, liberals, and tree huggers. If you stay true to your values, they're going to have to call you the majority.
Kander values expand Obamacare, higher job-killing taxes, even a huge new energy tax, more Washington policy mandates.
They're going to call you pinkos, commies, lefties, activists, liberals, and tree huggers.
Jason Kander, wrong for the U.S. Senate, wrong for Missouri.
I'm Roy Blunt, and I approve this message.
As Attorney General, I prosecuted crooked Wall Street banks and Medicaid fraud, returning over $500 million to you, all while operating my office under budget every year. The only time my opponent managed a budget, he was caught taking $700,000 from his veterans charity. Now, Eric Greitens says experience shouldn't matter. I'm Chris Koster, and I say governor of Missouri is not an entry-level job.
Koster for governor.
Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. This is the Opinion Maker panel we've all waited for. 2 days of the election, we had to bring out the big guns. Sarah Martin, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jane Duker, thank you for joining us again.
Happy to be here.
David Stillman, the man that we may call the Oracle in 2 days.
Very glad
we'll see.
to be here.
And Senator Bob Onder, welcome back, sir.
Great to be here, Scott.
Let's talk about the presidential race. It looked to me like Trump was going to win Missouri. Probably we all figured that from the start. He had some bad times there around that final debate, got down to 4 or 5 points. Our latest poll shows him up 12. I think it's probably trending higher.
Right. Another poll has him up 14. I think he comfortably wins Missouri.
Now, I got to say this, David Stillman, I think there were 2 Missouri Republicans that thought Trump would win this from the chute, and I think they're both sitting right here on this stage, and you and I think we were the early ones, maybe a few others, but we were 2 of the higher profile ones. We always should say, though, we're taping this show Friday morning. You have 2 of the most unpopular, odd candidates. Something could happen, but as of right now, I think Trump's on the way to a huge win.
Even if something happens, and we don't know what can happen, I think he's going to win by 12, 14, 15, 16 points. I think this is a blowout. I'm talking to county clerks in southern Missouri. The turnout is huge. I'll let Sarah and Jane tell us, but I understand the turnout looks like it's going to be a little low in the urban areas. I think it's going to be a big victory.
Speaking of people that were wrong, I was on KMOX, the Mark Reardon show, and Jane Duker was like, oh, I can't wait. I sure hope Trump is the nominee.
I got my wish.
And
I know.
you got your wish, and I think you may get a landslide.
Well, no, I do. I think he's going to win. I mean, I can't, I see the numbers and I see, and I don't believe that it has the coattail effects that everyone else is saying it does on every other race, because I think Missouri is very comfortable in switching, and I think the Blunt Kander race shows that. And I think Koster obviously will win. So, I think Trump will win Missouri. I have to agree with you on that, and it pains me.
Sarah Martin, it is a different world. I think you're seeing Jeff County is going to be a huge Trump place.
Absolutely.
The Boot Hill, it was odd how some of the competitive House races overlaid the places where Trump is oddly popular, way more than a normal Republican.
No, sure. Trump wins it handily. I don't think it's going to have the effect on down ballot races that the Republicans are hoping for, but Trump's going to win, and it is a new day. However, if we see something, if Hillary drops something towards the end, especially if it's offensive to women and minorities in the urban areas, you might see some of those numbers dip.
Yeah, I think what we've seen in our polling is Trump will go up 10, 12 points, maybe a little more. Then he'll have one of these problems. He'll come back down to 6 or 7, and then after 96 hours, Hillary Clinton's on TV.
96 hours.
Up. Exactly. And we are taping this Friday morning, so it's interesting. We taped last week in Kansas City hours before the FBI investigated her. Jane Duker, I sensed a different tone in this race since the FBI investigation here in Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I'm wondering if that really isn't, because I think Trump was where he was going to be regardless of the FBI thing. I'm not sure that it's having the effect, and I think people are starting to realize that it was probably overblown. And people, news people are already backtracking, saying, well, I wasn't.
You mean other Clinton supporters are backtracking?
No, Fox. Is Fox now supporting?
Oh,
gosh, then the world is crazy. So, I mean, even Fox is even backing off. Now, that doesn't mean that narrative isn't the narrative that everybody's using, and they've been using it all along. I just don't think it's going to have the long-term effect, and I think that it takes longer for those things to sort of bake.
David Stillman, I had a very prominent Missouri Republican, very centrist Missouri Democrat also told me the same thing. They thought Trump voters would see polls that showed him going to lose the presidency. They wouldn't vote. He would tell them it's rigged. They just wouldn't worry about it. This race nationally is very tight now. No one has a reason not to vote.
No, I was concerned about that. I actually agree with Jane on this. I don't think that what we've seen in the Trump surge, which I think is going on in Missouri, is actually the FBI, except to this extent. When Trump's not on the front page, he's surging, because what he represents to Missouri voters is what they think really is an establishment that has ignored them, that hasn't paid attention, that has abused them, that has not done what it should in government. And so when that is the issue, Trump wins. And I will say this, Sarah, I don't think there are coattails, but when that's the issue, I think the Republicans win.
Senator Under, you're actually out talking to people. I've seen you on social media all over the state campaigning for Republicans. I just sense that there's a rebellious streak in being a conservative. Donald Trump has tapped into it. I don't think what he says matters, but another thing drops on him could affect it. But why is the Trump surge happening to the extent it is with him?
Well, it's absolutely not the year for the establishment candidate. And I disagree with one thing that was said. I really think there are coattail effects in certain races. Maybe not the U.S. Senate race, but in some of the state rep races. In Jefferson County, I think Rob Vescovo, I think Dan Schall down in Jeffco are benefiting big time from Trump's popularity in that county.
Jamie, let's talk Senate race here. I was very surprised. I think everybody in politics thought Jason Kander had a lot of potential, a lot of ability, very talented guy. When he first ran, I was like, okay, he's going to make a good show, make a quality effort, right? Come close and maybe set himself up for something else. He brought it this race. He's come very close. I mean, it looks like Blunt has a little momentum heading into the election day, and I would say he's marginally favored. But Jason Kander has made this a better race than I thought. Can he overcome Hillary Clinton, though?
Well, I think I'm sort of like, I was where you were on Trump. I was there first day when I saw Jason's announcement video. I instantly sent money. And I knew Jason, but I mean, it's not like we were close, but I saw that video and I said, okay. And then I talked to him and he told me this is where my path goes. And he believed from day one. And I mean, everyone was like, this is a kamikaze mission. You're out of your mind. And I believed him instantly. And I've always been the one, same show, KMOX, saying, Jason is going to surprise everybody. And he has. And I really do think he can do this. I think the establishment angle is working, and it's working very well. And he's blanketing, and the DSCC is bringing in a lot of money in a way that we wouldn't see otherwise. He could be the one that changes the Senate. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah, I think he can pull it off.
You are probably in a place where you live in a place Jason Kander has to do very well in. Yes. I'm just a simple hillbilly from West Butler County. Everyone I know thinks the Blunt family's ex-served the state well, but there's a whipsaw effect. You have the top of the ticket, Donald Trump saying drain the swamp, right? And you have Eric Greitens saying everybody in office is a corrupt career politician. There is a whipsaw effect happening to Senator Blunt.
Right.
Do you think Jason Kander, I think at this point it still would be a bit of a surprise if he won. Does he pull it off?
I think he can pull it off if we have one of those surprises at the top of the ticket that tilts it, because Senator Blunt has supported Trump and he hasn't come back on that. And I think that can matter.
David Stillman, I think the fact he supported Trump is probably the best thing that's going for him right now.
It's funny how the world changes. Yeah. And here we are being the group that tapes before the election, and then somebody's going to come on next week, and of course they're going to look like geniuses.
Jack Cardetti he predicted everything. And
they're going to look like geniuses. But It was funny to me because I was watching the Greitens campaign and all the press wanted to ask him, what about Trump? What about Trump? What about Trump? Because they thought that was the gotcha question.
Yeah.
Right now, the gotcha question is what about Hillary? And I don't think that it's coattails, but Sarah, what I think is that the vote and the turnout is what's going to make the difference. And the Trump turnout in southwestern, southern Missouri, the Boot Hill, it's a conservative turnout, and I think it's going to make a huge. I think Cantor's run one of the most brilliant campaigns I've ever seen, but because of the turnout, I think he's going to fall a little short.
Are you seeing the polls I'm seeing that Cantor had a surge? It's been blunted. Now Blunt is trending forward into Election Day.
I think that's right, and I think Cantor is too left for a center-right state like Missouri, and I think many Missourians feel that Blunt has served the state well, and I think it'll be close, and no question that Jason Cantor is an A-tier candidate, but I think Blunt pulls it off.
Sets himself up very well for 2018, though.
I think he does.
Interesting. We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Second segment, we're going to talk all the statewide races. We'll leave you with this week's governor's poll. Tightening race.
Hi, I'm Jay Ashcroft. This is Shirley, and this is Shirley's dream. Her family built this company from the ground up and employs dozens of Missouri families.
And it wasn't always easy. And each year, the government makes it harder and harder.
As Secretary of State, I'll make it quicker and more affordable to start a small business and create jobs. What's this?
Break's over. It's time to get to work.
I better get going. I'm Jay Ashcroft, and I'm asking for your vote.
Congressman Russ Carnahan's record? In Washington, Carnahan sided with Barack Obama on Wall Street bailouts, Obamacare, and a job-killing national energy tax. Don't let Russ Carnahan do the same to Missouri.
I'm Mike Parson. I know how to create jobs. It's why I fought to balance the budget every year without raising taxes. As your lieutenant governor, I'll stand up to the special interests, get our economy moving, and provide more opportunities for hardworking middle-class families.
At Ameren, Missouri, we're committed to providing cleaner energy for generations to come. Our new state-of-the-art solar energy center is a great example of that commitment. It's part of our long-range plan to deliver more than 30% of our power from cleaner resources, making sure your energy future is not just brighter, but cleaner too. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Politicians are like pigs at the trough. Income tax, property tax, payroll tax, gas tax, state, county, and city sales taxes that can run a dime on the dollar. Now the politicians and bureaucrats want new sales taxes on the services we use every day. Services like rent, daycare, doctor visits, car and house repairs, delivery, even haircuts. It's enough to make you squeal. Protect Missourians from these new taxes by voting yes for Amendment 4, the Taxpayer Protection Amendment.
Eric Schmidt is running for treasurer to fight for middle-class families. Schmidt authored 2 of Missouri's largest tax cuts and fought to balance the budget while opposing Obamacare expansion. Eric Schmidt's on our side. And Judy Baker? Barack Obama paid Baker nearly $250,000 to push Obamacare in Missouri. And Baker implemented the disastrous law that is driving up our health premiums, hurting Missouri families, killing jobs. Judy Baker's wrong for Missouri.
Welcome back. There's only one person we can start this segment with talking about the governor's race, and it's you, David Stillman. You called this from the start. You were one of the first people out there.
I've been on your show twice. The first time was over a year ago, and I said, watch Eric Greitens, and I think you thought I was crazy. Watch Eric Greitens. I think Eric Greitens is not only going to be governor of this state, he is the kind of inspirational leader the people are hungering for. I think it's going to be a transformational 4 years as governor.
Is it an interesting thing, though? 2 pretty different people come together. The outsider theme worked. This race, I think, is very close right now. I thought maybe Koster had a bit of an edge, and the Hillary Clinton FBI thing gave a big boost to every Republican, including Greitens.
Well, again, I think you got to give a lot of credit for Chris, and I'm not going to sit here and be a hater. As you know, I like Chris Koster. I have a lot of respect for Chris Koster. But Greitens is extraordinary, and with the Trump turnout, I think we go back to turnout, how that changes the dynamics. Mm-hmm. I think Greitens is going to win a very close race, but I think what's going to be more important is what kind of governor Greitens is going to be. And when you join him with Todd Richardson, who I just think the world of, and I think he is the best speaker we've seen since Kenny Rothman. That's how long I've been around. I think we're going to see a lot of really good things happen in Missouri.
Wow. Maybe John Jay, I'm not sure who all else was speaker, but let me ask you, when you talk about what kind of governor he might be, I've seen him say some pretty rough things about the people he's talking about. Chris Koster on this show 2 weeks ago defended Todd Richardson against Eric Greitens. I think Senator Onder is one of the most honest, best public servants we have.
He's a corrupt crony. That's the interesting thing about this, because I think you raise an interesting point, which I would counter with. I think, from what David said, Koster is definitely getting into the GOP base. You cannot dispute with the Farm Bureau, the NRA.
Well,
he is definitely.
You can see the HSUS now attacking him and Mike Parson.
And I think so, but I don't see Greitens pulling over any Democrats. So even with whatever turnout might be there, I think, Attorney General Koster is getting into places that most Democrats don't even think of. And so I think that's not going to turn. And I do think that he is the only candidate, which I think is interesting, that he's effectively been able to foil himself against Greitens by saying, I have experience, and because I don't say everyone is a criminal, I'm actually going to be able to work with people and get stuff done. And I think that will make him a great governor. I think that people don't mind working with Chris. They can have their partisan differences, but they can also get something done. And everybody is really hungry for somebody who can work with both parties. Chris is one of the only people that I'm seeing in any ads, and you tell me if I'm missing any, that's saying I will work with Democrats and Republicans. He's the only one out there saying I'm actually going to, and it's working. I disagree.
Well, there's a poll we had that shows a 12-point lead for Donald Trump, but only a 1-point lead for Eric Greitens. That's got to be a little concern. I mean, it's been a great 2 weeks for Eric Greitens, but when the top of your ticket's surging to that level and you're within the margin of error, that's got to be concerning.
It depends on the poll, too, because there are other polls, too, that have him up 4 or 5%. But I think Greitens, I just think that people aren't going to be sure of Greitens. They know what they're getting with Koster, and like Jane said, that he will pick up a lot of rural Republicans, whereas Greitens is not going to pick up the urban Democrats. And I think Attorney General Koster sort of seems like the adult in the situation, whereas Greitens, he won't release his tax returns.
Adults, though?
I do. I think people do want adults.
So, let me ask you, it's got to be an odd election for you. You're in the trenches with Joe Maxwell and the animal rights activists on the other side of the NRA and the Farm Bureau.
Now, keep in mind, the Greitens supporter here has sued the HSUS. I actually have a lawsuit against them.
I think it's a different time when we talk about bringing in Republicans. Yeah. This election's been very different. This governor's race is a very different governor's race. You've been in the trenches with Eric Greitens. Do you see that crossover effect happening with Republicans?
Scott, Eric did not seek nor did he receive the HSUS endorsement. Joe Maxwell's a partisan Democrat. He knew that saying nice things about Eric Greitens was going to hurt.
So you think
it
was a move by them, a strategic move?
I do. But the fact is that the Republican base took a while to consolidate around our Republican nominee for governor because we had a really hard-fought primary between 4 very good candidates for governor. The latest polls I've seen show Republicans coming back to Eric Greitens.
I agree with that. Do you think that was all of it, though? Like, my state representative is Todd Richardson. My state senator is Doug Leibla.
Right.
Not everyone in the party is willing to just be smacked in the face and called corrupt and swallow their pride. I think that had something to do with the length of time it took for the base to come home.
Look, I think when Eric talks about corrupt career politicians, he's talking about Hillary Clinton, he's talking about Chris Koster, the pay-to-play culture in the Attorney General's office is exactly what he's talking about.
I've heard Chris Koster defend the legislature. I've never heard Eric Greitens defend the legislature.
He has problems with some things about the legislature, unlimited lobbyist gifts and so on, but no, I think when he talks about corrupt career politicians, he's talking about Chris Koster's pay-to-pay Attorney General's office.
I see him coming home.
Can I say one thing on this? If you look in Webster's, it's always good to go to the dictionary. Corruption has 2 different meanings. One, of course, is criminal behavior.
Neither one of them good.
But one,
it
is not. But one is to simply say that it has changed and been corrupted from its original function. I'm not here to defend the legislature. I will tell you, I think that representative government has abandoned to a great extent what it needs to be doing. We have got to have roads and bridges. They're not for free. We've got to have higher education. We've got to have economic development. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that the system has become corrupted, that it does favor the insiders more than it should, and Eric Greitens is running on that. I'll bet you the senator would agree with that. I bet you everybody here would agree with that, and I think 51% of the Missourians are going to agree with
Jane,
that.
This is where it's hard for just a simple hillbilly like me from West Butler County to argue with a big-time Rolla lawyer, but
there are no such things as big-time Dent County lawyers.
How many definitions of corruption are a compliment?
Well, yeah, no, that's not something I would want somebody to say about me. But so, yeah, I think it does make a difference. I think that Jefferson City is a small town city, you know, good and bad. And I think people, you know, they all want to have their partisan battles. But in the end, we do have to deal with higher ed. We have to deal with education. We have to deal with roads. We have a road crisis. I mean, we have an absolute infrastructure crisis at every level. Roads, you know, education, buildings, everything. And no one seems to be willing to say, look, we all need to come together and do something about this, and we all need to jump in together. And I think Chris is about the only one that can do that right now.
So when we've had conversations where I will defend the legislature. I think the legislature's done a lot of things to make this state better, and I think it's a very good thing. You've had some of the folks in charge of it and some of the things they've done. I think there's a lot of folks in the legislature that are Republicans, that are the folks that are going to switch over and vote for Chris Koster.
I think things have changed since Speaker Richardson's taken over. I think that in the last year, I think that's mattered. But I think going back to what Jane said, just the corruption in general, people, that would work, that message would work if Greitens didn't have his own shady dealings and Koster wasn't running the ads against him. I think that noise when they attack the legislature, I don't know how upset people really are about the legislature because they still are going to vote incumbents. Humphreys wasn't that successful, so.
Do you think part of ethics reform is maybe taking these secret donations and making that illegal, limiting that from the process?
Well, are you referring to the legislature or some of the national groups that have got involved in the various races?
Can you take some of the federal, I mean, I think a lot of Missouri's problems are Washington seeping into it. Can you block some of the federal PACs from contributing to state races?
Well, of course, I think there should always be transparency. But what I find with the campaign finance situation in this state most appalling is when Chris Koster took $1.9 million from the unions in one weekend. 40% of union members in Missouri vote Republican, and yet because we're a forced union state, people have to have money taken out of their hard-earned paychecks to support causes that they disagree with.
You ran in the House when there was limits. Which
we
one was
had
better?
Limits. I believe that the key is openness and transparency, and I think that the campaign contributions are political speech, and I oppose limits.
Republican sweep Tuesday?
The 5 statewide offices and the U.S. Senate, I believe so.
Sweep?
I'm not about to disagree with Senator Onder.
Sweep?
No sweep, lots of crossover.
We are going to be back this week in Missouri Politics. Go to TWMP Overtime at twmp.tv or at MissouriTimes.com. We're going to have predictions next with margins. We're going to tape it. If they're right, you probably won't see them. If they're wrong, we'll bring them back in full form. Thank you to everyone, especially our new viewers in Kansas City, for watching This Week in Missouri Politics during this cycle. We'll see you next week with Governor Nixon. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.